All right, welcome in. It's the Breer Report for October the 3rd. Week 5 is underway, and that's where we're going to start with the San Francisco 49ers going in to SoFi Stadium and upsetting the Rams in overtime, 23-20. Really exciting game. Came down in the end to Sean McVay going for it on 4th and 1. The Niners are able to get a stop on Kyren Williams, and that puts the Niners all alone for the time being in the NFC West in first place at 4-1. The Rams are now 3-2. And I think the story of this game is, without question, the resilience and the wherewithal of that Niners team and of that Niners program. This is a beat-up, battered 49er roster. They went into last night's game. No Nick Bosa, no Ricky Pearsall, no Brandon Ayuk, no George Kittle, no Brock Purdy. And I'm not going to say no problem, because I think they're better when they have all of those guys. But maybe it's a little bit less of a problem for them than it would be for other teams, because of how well coached they are and how well balanced they are, and how they're always able to come up with a plan that fits the personnel that they have on hand, whether that's the all-star team they're able to put out there in some circumstances, or whether it's the version that we saw last night, which was a lot less than what they have at full strength. And the story, of course, is going to be Mac Jones throwing for over 300 yards. But I think he encapsulates the bigger picture of what we're talking about here, where Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh and all the guys on that staff do such a good job of leaning in to what those guys are good at. And I saw it a couple of weeks ago when I was talking to Mac Jones coming off of a win against the Saints, and he explained to me what Kyle Shanahan was doing for him. Now, remember, those two guys got to know each other a little bit before the draft in 21. A lot of people assumed that Mac Jones was going to wind up being a 49er when the Niners traded up from the 12th pick to the 3rd pick that year. It didn't wind up happening, but I think the fit remained. And so that's something Mac Jones had always kept in the back of his head. And, having the opportunity to become a free agent for the very first time, he winds up signing in San Francisco based on that fit. And having talked to him coming out of that Saints game, you can see why, and you can hear in his voice how excited he was to be in the spot he's in, even though he's not a starting quarterback there. And there was one play in particular from that Saints game a couple weeks ago that he raised. It was the touchdown pass to Christian McCaffrey. And he said that it is the first time in his career where he's had a coach tell him exactly what's going to happen on a play, and it happens exactly the way the coach says it's going to happen. And that when Christian McCaffrey went into his break, he was going to be wide open. The play was right there for him. And Mac Jones, because his feet were in the right place, because his eyes were in the right place, was in position to make the throw there. It was an easy touchdown, and it looked like an easy touchdown, but a lot goes into those sorts of things. And I think the comfort level that Mac Jones has in the offense is obvious. And in part, it's because there is some carryover from what he was doing with Steve Sarkisian at the University of Alabama all those years ago. Sarkisian, of course, took over for Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta, if you want to go back almost a decade, when Shanahan went to San Francisco. And just, again, tying, what you're seeing to your footwork, to the progressions in the offense, all of that makes sense for Mac, because it's sort of how he was raised as a quarterback. And so I think it's just, when you look at a night like last night, it's organizational triumph. It's the different pieces of the organization working together. It's going out and making sure you're bringing in the right kinds of players and having the sort of program that can reintegrate players. You bring back a Kendrick Bourne, a Gross Matos, who winds up getting hurt in the game, but was important with Bosa out. You're able to bring him in and revive his career under a position coach in Chris Kasarik, who's done that over and over and over again. You see these things all over the roster. And again, it's the personnel department going out and finding fits. It's the coaching staff being flexible enough to lean into what their players do well. I just thought it was such an impressive thing. And the Niners are now 4-1, all alone again in first place in the NFC West. And you look at their schedule, and I have it up here. Big game next week at Tampa. So obviously that's going to be very challenging. Then they get the Falcons, then they get the Texans, then they get the Giants. And you're seeing where they could start to build a little bit of a head of steam here before they play the Rams again on November the 9th. Very, very impressed with where the Niners are. And that's to take nothing away from the Rams, who I still think are one of the best teams in football, who have now had a couple of tough losses, one to the Niners, one to the Eagles. Those, of course, are the two teams that represented the Super Bowl over the last 3 years, with the Rams having been the team that represented the NFC the year before that. So good lessons for the Rams to take from this one. I think the Rams are still a really, really good team, but what an impressive night from the San Francisco 49ers. All right, our second topic for today, Lamar Jackson likely not playing on Sunday for the Ravens against the Texans. And this is an interesting one because the Ravens have a very challenging couple of weeks ahead of them. Then they have their bye. So I think part of the decision-making process with Lamar Jackson, and this has always looked a little bit different than it does with other quarterbacks, I think relates to the way that you use him and how you get the most out of him and how you want to preserve him for the end of the year. There's no question that the Ravens are at their very best when Lamar can threaten the defense in every way possible. And that's not to say he isn't a great passer. He has turned himself into a great passer. He 100% is that. But if you're looking at the season and saying, how are we going to be at our very best in December and January and February, it's with Lamar Jackson being in the best physical condition you possibly can have him in. And so he's dealing with a hamstring injury. Obviously, it's a difficult hamstring injury to deal with. This game against the Texans this weekend is an interesting one because both teams come in 1-3, and the Texans really have a shot to take a step forward and dig themselves out from underneath that 0-3 start that they got off to. So, one team is going to come out of this 1-4, same sort of situation that the Ravens were in going up against the Chiefs last week. But they have to be careful with Lamar. And a couple of numbers I think that can help illustrate why. If you go back and you look at the career numbers and you look at the numbers from 2024, last year, Lamar Jackson averaged over 8 carries a game. And for his career, he's at almost 10 carries a game. That's a lot of, that's a heavy workload in the run game for anybody playing the quarterback position. Now you compare it against some of his peers last year, Josh Allen, who's another athletic quarterback with a much bigger frame and more ability to take on punishment. His average carries per game were at 6. And then Mahomes, who, again, came out, he was seen as a quarterback who could run a lot, really hasn't as a pro. He was at 3.6 carries per game last year. And for his career, he is under 4 carries per game. So he's running less than half as much as Lamar Jackson is. Well, what does that mean? That means the way your offense is structured, the way your offense is built in Baltimore is a little bit more reliant on Lamar as a runner. Again, does not mean he can't win the game in different ways. It's just the way you're constructed. So if it's a hamstring injury, if it's something that can linger, if it's something that's an October problem that could become a November problem, that could become a December problem, you're going to be a little bit more careful in managing that. And you're going to be a little bit more cognizant of what playing him now could do to him in November, could do to him in December. And so I think the right path here for the Ravens, I think it's the one they're taking, is to be cautious. And I think that's why they've always handled these situations this way. So again, to me, this is an important stretch for the Ravens. But the most important thing, and I think they're good enough to get by with Cooper Rush over the next couple of weeks, is why you invest in the backup quarterback if you are a team in the Ravens spot. And again, that's not saying this is going to be easy to get through the next couple of weeks with Cooper Rush as your quarterback. The Texans, I don't think are going to be an easy out this week. That defense is filthy. And CJ Stroud, it feels like, took a step with the offense last week and working under new coordinator Nick Caley. And then they have the Rams next week, who are going to be coming off of 10 days rest and obviously are going to be pretty hungry after losing 2 games in 3 weeks. Finally, our third topic, Jayden Daniels will be back in the lineup this week. The Commanders go all the way across the country to play a Chargers team that's coming in a little bit beat up. They have both their tackles down now. Rashawn Slater, of course, out for the year. Joe Alt out with a high ankle sprain. And so there's opportunity here for the Commanders to get themselves back on their feet with Jayden Daniels as the quarterback, coming off of last week's loss in Atlanta. And I think you look at like where the Commanders are now, and at 2-2, this is a team that's got a chance to build some momentum. This is an important game for them. Getting Jayden Daniels back in the lineup is a very big deal. You look at this, Then they play on a Monday night. It's a standalone game against the Bears. After that, they have the Cowboys. So a lot of people are talking like, what's wrong with the Commanders, right? We forget again that this was seen as a pretty massive rebuild when Dan Quinn and Adam Peters took over a little under 2 years ago, and that the 12-win NFC title game season of a year ago was a little bit of a not smoke and mirrors, but a bunch of things breaking right for them. They've had some things go wrong with them early in the year, including the Daniels injury. They've been able to weather that storm. And now at 2-2, there's an opportunity here for them to build some momentum. If they can find a way to beat the Chargers this week, get the Bears next week, the Cowboys after that, those are two very winnable games. And now you're 5-2 going into Arrowhead for what would be a very big Monday night game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Appreciate you guys coming out. As always, leave your comments right below here on the YouTube page, or you can get to me on social media at Albert Breer, on Twitter at Albert R. Breer, on Facebook at Albert_Breer, on Instagram. We will see you guys next week. Enjoy week 5, everyone.